going to demonstrate how we do a running braid with a really thick mane. This mane is at least 2, and one of the big secrets to getting off to a great start is that we've got to get it really wet, and we've got to split it exactly down the middle. If you split it uneven, you're going to have a thicker side and a thinner side, and you'll never be happy with it. So that takes a little thought, and it takes a few props here. Bethany, who manages my barn and does a fantastic job doing these manes and has saved me from having to run from the competition ring back to braid now that she can do it so well too, is going to help me. We're going to show you with 2 people, and we're also going to show you with a little more time, you can do it by yourself. So we'll give you a couple different approaches on this, and the first thing we're going to do is soak this mane down and start splitting it. So the things that we tend to keep in our braiding kit, we always have yarn, because for the short manes we're going to use yarn and or rubber bands. The important thing in doing the long manes is really helpful to have the wax string. You can get this at your tack stores, you can find it online, and the quality of it is that it actually has a coating of wax over it, and that's how we get the mane to actually hold in place. You don't have to have the exact color of the horse's mane. For instance, today on Blackstone we're going to use the brown, but you can get something close, and that really helps. I'm going to show you how we cut it and how we hide it. Another thing that we like to have is the big comb for these manes. To separate it, it works better if you have a large comb, and by splitting it down the middle, we're going to have to also, as Bethany is setting up over here, we have to have some of these big ladders. Do be careful with your ladders with the horse, and make sure your horse is okay with having 2 people around them and having them. We know that Blackstone is a Grand Prix horse, and he's braided often, so he's quite comfortable. He actually loves to be braided, so the ladders are no problem. Oh, another thing I wanted to demonstrate is that some of these inexpensive salve or max hold, just the old-fashioned liquid hairsprays are really handy. They create a lot of tact, and in your braiding they are an inexpensive way to try to control some of those loose strings and stuff. So we also have over here, Bethany's got a bucket that we're going to use on the ground with a sponge that we'll have to re-wet that mane down as we go. What I like to do when I set up the ladder is I like to make sure that I turn the legs away from the horse. I want to have an easy way that I can to get off. If I was thinking that this horse could pull back and had a temperament like that, I would have someone hold him. But we have braided this horse many, many times, and he's quite, in fact, you can see him chewing. He loves being braided. So we know that for him, this is actually a relaxing piece. One thing that Bethany and I have found that really speeds time up is that if we split the mane the night before, we separate it the night before we actually go to braid the mane, what we do is we just take big clumps and we rubber band the clumps together on both sides of the horse, and that saves us. We can do that way before we actually go to braid the mane. You have choices in how the horse looks. You can leave the forelocks down, and you can maybe French braid, which does look nice. You can French braid the top of the mane and forelock, and I'll show you that at some point. But I actually like very much to braid the forelock back into the braid, and that's how we're going to demonstrate it today. If I was going to not do that, I would just split it here, leave my forelock down. I would create a French braid down here as long as I wanted and leave the longer piece, which on stallions and horses with long manes and a lot of your Iberian horses look quite nice. Some of the big warm bloods look really nice with that look. I do like the cleanness of having the forelock back, and that's how we're going to start this. So we have to kind of incorporate the forelock into the split. So first thing I'm going to do is start combing it back. The other trick is we've got to allow your halter to be, Bethany's unhooked it so that it's loose and we can get started with the braid in the beginning and then move the halter back over it. So it helps to have a halter that has a buckle down at the bottom like that, or a buckle that you can undo easily and then buckle back up when you're ready. This is going to be...
Much hair. Much hair.
Yeah. So to split it, obviously it seems super simple. You just start in the middle here. But and you start parting the mane down the crest. Then Bethany's going to section it onto hers, and what you'll do is you'll end up not getting a very straight line, and you'll just have to keep going back over it till your line gets straighter. One of the tricks on getting these manes to hold is the temptation, of course, is you want to wash them and get them super clean and show sheen them, and that's about the worst thing you can do. So you actually want the mane on the dirtier side. It holds the braid better. So we do not, when we shampoo them, we'll shampoo them a few days out, and then we'll condition them, but then we'll let them sit for a couple of days before we actually come to do the braiding for the competition. Getting the mane really wet is a big trick to this game, and it's amazing on these thick manes. You can take the hose to it, and when you start to split it, you realize it's still dry with the underneath part. So that's where we come with the bucket. So in the evenings after we've had our competition or our clinic, if we're going to ride the next day, we always take the mane down, but what we don't do is we keep it separated. So it saves you from having to do this phase the next day, and that's again where I was talking about where you can, I think she's showing you by she's lumping together some hair and putting rubber bands over the top of it just to kind of hold. If he shakes his head, we've got it under control. So that goes a little bit, makes it a little easier. Most of these guys find this really relaxing, and we've had I've never had really problems once they understand what you're doing, because I think it really feels good. So they enjoy it. We always make it fun for them and not too stressful, and that way the experience for the horse becomes something they actually look forward to. I think and you can see what a monster that mane is, how thick it is. So, you know, I know that we have people out there that are riding Friesians that are having the same problem, or Iberian Spanish horses, Lusitanos. Blackstone's a Lusitano, and he is 11, going to be 12 this fall. He's showing in the Grand Prix, and he loves his mane. I would never pull this horse's mane because I think it's a big part of him. It's also nice because it gives him, when you see him with the mane down, he looks like a pet horse, beautiful pet horse, but when he gets his mane up and he gets out to the ring, it's almost like he knows he's on, and I think people are kind of amazed at the stature. It gives him a really, nice arch to the top of his neck, and I think it adds a lot. And he, to pull a mane like this or cut a mane like this as thick as it is, I just think that's a nightmare. So it's better to learn how to manage it. In conditioning it, we use a lot of coconut oil. We're very, very careful about products that have alcohol in them. We use conditioners, soft soaps. There's a lot of nice products out there that you can get that are made directly for that, and sometimes you can go to your Costco and find a product that you like our coconut oil. We usually buy at a Costco or Sam's Club or something like that, and that really helps on the keeping up with it day to day. We do keep it during the week. We don't do this every day to braid it. We can do on manes that are not quite this elaborate. We'll braid them when I ride, just a nice long braid, simpler version of what we're doing. But the manes like this, we like to, it's just too difficult to, even one running braid on him is a big, huge, heavy, bouncy thing. So if we don't braid it up nice and tight for practice work, it is, I think, a distraction and stuff. So our answer to that is to braid it in sections loosely. I don't pull too tight in the beginning when it's going to stay up all night long, and we'll just do what we call his reggae braids, that we braid sections down just nice and long and do it all on one side, and it allows him to have that fly control. He can flip those braids around and it gives him an automatic fly control. Do you like that, Bethany? You think we got it?
I think it's pretty good.
All right. Good deal. And so now, it's interesting, she keeps putting water on it, but this is still super dry. So we're gonna get more water on it, and I'm gonna give it a start over here. Now, this string, what I try to do on the string is that I should have braided my hair, I think, it would help. Anyway, I double the length, and I go longer than the neck of the horse. Better to have too much than not enough. So I measure it from the top of the forelock all the way down and have extra. So that's how you decide on how long you're gonna need. We do one string on each side, so you've got to have 2 pieces of that length. All right, so to get started, I've combed my side down. She's got her side kind of organized. We'll need to comb that a little bit more once we get going. Now, you can do this on your own. We're going to show you, I'm going to start it, and you're going to see how I start on my own. And then Bethany's going to feed me pieces of mane, which is a really nice way to do it in the sense of holding it. Some of the best braiders in Interagro, like Antonio, who does the driving horses, any of you guys who watch Interagro in the Facebook, he's fantastic. And his hands are so strong from driving all the time with the cart horses, the foreign hands and stuff, that he can really hold the braid well. That's a lot of the secret to this, is I've separated it up into 3 sections, as you see here. Now the trick is, I am going to go the back to the front. So I'm going to cross the back of the braid. I see a lot of people start this way, and that's why their braid turns a different direction than ours is going to. So you have your 3 sections. This is the front, middle, back. Back crosses first in your braid. So that back piece, I just start it with crossing it. And then I make 1 normal braid. So I just took my front piece, I crossed it, now I'm back to the back piece again. Now, I just crossed over the top the back piece. This is where we start adding on. We add on from the top. And that's what makes the braids hold so well next to the neck. A lot of people, when they say to me, I just can't get it. Well, I know they're adding on from the bottom. So I just added on from the top. Now I'm going to pull this back piece up and towards Bethany. I'm going to cross that front piece back over, and then I've got my new back that comes down. Every time it comes down, that's where we add. Now Bethany's going to separate out a section and comb it out. Whoops, she got that other piece, which can happen. So I'm going to try to grab that piece back from her while she's separating. So now what she's done is she's gotten my next piece to feed into the braid. So she's going to lay that over the top for me. And now I'm holding it with 2 fingers. Notice how this hand is again pulling towards Bethany. That's a big, big piece, because if you start pulling down this direction, your braid's going to be loose. So you've got to keep going towards that center part that you made. Now I crossed it back over. I'm going to go here. And now I'm actually waiting for Bethany's going to get another section. Now as she does this, I'm going to add our string. This string I like to try to come under the halter crown piece. So she's going to give me another section, like that. And this is a little bit of a tricky place, so I've split my string in half. I'm going to come under the crown piece so I don't have to feed that back through, because Bethany's going to move that crown piece up in a minute. I'm going to try to get separate of all this extra hair. Bethany, you want to help me with that? Okay, now I've taken that, folded in half, and I'm holding it with 1 finger. I'm going to separate that string onto 2 of the sections. It doesn't matter too much which sections, but you've got to separate it into 2. So there we go. So now I've got it split between the middle section and the back section. I'm retightening my braid up. You always tighten it by pulling on the back towards the part that's towards the withers. That has a string in it, and I'm pulling firm there, crossing back over again over the top, and pulling my string. And now I'm going to go again. Bethany's going to hand me 1 more section. I think we might be able to move the halter crown piece up at that point. So she passes it over the top. So it goes over the top. Cross it again. So that every time it goes over the top, I've got to come from the front again. Now I'm doing my down piece. 1 more piece, then we'll do the crown piece. Okay. Now what Bethany, by adding that piece for me, really helps me not to have to let go of the firmness of keeping this mane back up here. So go ahead and add. Good. Now Bethany does this all by herself all the time. She's gotten quite good at it. So it isn't mandatory to have 2 people, but it's a nice way to learn it. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're just gonna try to hold it as tight as we can, get that crown piece back in place. Good. Now I want to come down here and make sure my string is separate, so it's all individual. Just gonna spray it.
Mostly water with a little bit of hairspray mixed in, just to help hold the tightness of the braid.
So she mixed from that when we did the braiding kit, just a grocery store, dime store liquid hairspray. I just dated myself. I said dime store. Us older people understand that. Okay. All right. So now, when I get to the next time I get to this, where I feel the string coming in the braid, where that in the back portion. So here I'm going to cross. She's going to add now. See, here's the string. I'm going to actually give it a little tug, just a little tightening there. That's all, just a light tug. And she's going to hand me another piece. And the double people really helps on these very thick mains. On a single main, you certainly don't need. On a main that's, you know, thinner and not getting so tangled in itself, doing it yourself is absolutely super easy. The interesting thing is that when you want to do, we're going to show you Zero, the white stallion that I'm going to be riding later. He's going to have it done single, and it's the same technique. But his mane is thinner than this on one side, so it lays really easy. It's very quick to do. So now as I get to that piece with the string in it again, I'll give that pull on the string just a little bit. So, you know, you may not see me doing it, but I'm actually running my hand down, and when I get to the end of the hair, I'm feeling that string. I just give a reminder, little squeeze on it. So I think that if we could get Jim, if you could shoot this from maybe a different angle and you could see what we're doing here from a different perspective, that'd be great. So Bethany just reminded me that I should probably talk about how thick we choose it to be. And when we start out where the mane is thinner, you have to take bigger sections to add in. But as you get down the crest, you'll find that your mane gets thicker. At that point, Bethany's taking a smaller section, and we're adding that smaller section in because the mane is thicker. And what you want to do is you want to keep your braid running to where she's adding right into it. We're not pulling from down the neck trying to make it. I'm going to have to move my ladder. So when I move my ladder, what I usually do is just hold, back it up, go again. So then when I know anytime I let that mane go a little bit, it's going to start loosening. So I have to kind of tighten it back up. Now we can feel it getting dry, so she's going to grab some water here. Get some on this part too. Now I'm going to take a moment here and kind of separate all my pieces, get them laying a little better. And I'm going to look for my string and give my little yank on the string. Doesn't have to be every time, but that really... So you continue to, as you're continuing to add that mane in, you're always adding the mane in on the back braid. So if you look at these braids as three, the one that is the closest to Bethany and closest to the neck is the one that's added onto. So as you cross that over, and because I just pulled it out so everybody could see, it actually loosened up. So I've got to pull on the front braid to tighten that back up. You can play with that a little and it'll start to make more sense. So now I've got that across the top. This is my new back piece. And Bethany now is going to add a piece. If I was doing it on my own, which I could do the next one on my own and show how that works. But so she added it. I'm pulling all this back, and I'm always trying to do it towards the neck of the horse. And crossing it again. And now as I cross it, the first thing I do is I try to separate the back, pull on the string a bit. Then what I would do here, if I was adding my own, is I would just reach over, grab the hair, separate it out, pull down, re-straighten, straighten each piece out, pull that, pull this, and then go ahead and get that string or separate it out. And then crossing again. We usually do find this, that they tend to want to, you step up? Good boy, such a good boy. Back up with their mane. So now she's coming over the top.
Whoa.
I'm crossing over the front piece, across the back, tugging on everything a little, just giving it gentle pulls, checking my string.
Step up, Stan.
You could have, and if in doubt, have someone hold the horse if you don't know if they're going to until they get used to this concept. The feeding idea and giving them a hay bag while you're doing this, the problem with that is that they're moving all the time on you, and the hay is then getting in the braid and makes more of a mess. Usually they actually like the feeling of the braiding, so they'll usually calm down once you start braiding if they're fidgety. Now another important piece as we get back here, I like to stop my braid at the top of the withers. If you braid too far back, you'll actually rip the hair out and it gets too much of a strain on the horse. So we're going to stop here, and that is in front of the withers here. And that allows, when he puts his head down and makes his neck round, that he's not getting it, it's not pulling across the top. So it's important to stop. If you have a lot of mane here to deal with, you can either let that go under the saddle and be flat, or you could throw in just a regular braid and just braid it down and tie it up. Usually we try to leave it loose and just tuck it under the saddle pad so it's more comfortable for the horse. Then we just go ahead and we braid all the way down. I like to use a technique that I use in yarn braiding to tie this up with, and I'm going to show you that real quick. And I'm going to take the end of my string and I'm going to tie this braid off. I'm going to go down as much as I can to the tip. It just helps you not to have the little pieces. I'm going to pull my string out here. Now I'm making a loop around my fingers. So I just looped it around and I pulled it through. You can pull the pieces through, and that'll hold the bottom of your braid. The next thing I like to do is, now I've got this long section here, depending on how long that is. I'll go up here through the middle of the braid. I'll take this and I'll pull it up and pull it through. So I'm going to show this in short braiding later too, as a technique I use with yarn. I'm going to bring this around the back, go around that bump that knot I made. I'm going to go back through where I threaded through in the first place, so that tip goes down there. And then I can tie this off with the string that I have left. And if I don't have enough string, what I can do too, just to anchor it down a little more, is put some rubber bands, and that's what she's bringing. She's bringing me some good rubber bands. So the trick on rubber bands is use a lot of them. Be brave with your rubber bands, not just one. They're not expensive. They come in big bags. Keep your rubber bands in the refrigerator if you live in a hot climate, because the refrigerator, they will keep their elasticity. If you leave them in a hot area out where they're in the sun, they will lose their elasticity and they won't last as long. So here we've got it. We've got this side done. It's nice and neat. It starts up here, goes all the way down. If I was doing a single horse, single braid, it would be the same thing. The nice thing about this is it really stays here, and you'll see that when I'm riding and stuff. And now we would do it again on this side. So we're all started over here on this side, and then we'll just cut to when I finish, because you don't need to watch me do the whole thing. But it is a little like wrapping polo wraps. It feels different when you go to the other side, because you're using different hands to achieve the same thing. So I want to show that real quick, just so people, I've seen them get it right on one side and go to the other side and do the exact same motor with their hands, and it actually puts it backwards. So let's show that real quick, and we'll get that. One thing you don't, they can absolutely stretch down and eat grass and take the hay from the bottom of their stall, but the problem is it loosens up the braid to put them that low. So Bethany made a reminder for me to say that we braid right before we're going to go ride and compete. We don't braid hours and hours ahead of time on this. And fortunately, with this kind of mane, we want to braid it. When they come back, we take it right out and we separate it up if we're going to braid it the next day, and we're set to go. So
We don't leave it in.
what are you doing? He says, oh, yeah. All right, so in the beginning, I said that going on this side feels, it's a little bit like polo wrapping, that now your back is going to be your right hand and your front is your left hand, and on the other side it's the opposite direction around. So that's where people kind of, if they're not thinking, get in trouble. So I just have to remember it's always the back to the front. I just crossed over, pulling the hair. Oh, do you have the string?
Yep,
She's got string ready. It's fine, okay. And then we're going to do a few before we add the string in. This light's horrible for me to see. This is where I need my glasses.
I wasn't going to say it.
No, Bethany wasn't going to tease me about it. I gave my mom so much trouble, she's giggling at this moment. For getting to that point where, okay, and let's get a little bigger piece for that next section. Again, I'm trying to pull towards Bethany, and I feel that I've got my ladder a little too far away, but I'm going to struggle through it until we get the string in and get that crown piece, and then I'll move it. We're separating up where I'm accidentally catching little pieces, so she's pulling it clear.
I think we'll have to move the halter pretty soon.
Yeah, let's add the string. Okay, so we're going to go under the halter. I'm not going to pull it through. I'm just wanted to add the string in here. I just have to pull this top piece through, and that's it. So I lied. I lied there. That was a little bit of a lie. All right, so I pulled the top piece through. It's funny how when you don't teach this, you just do it. You have to think about it for a second. That didn't seem like I added enough. Should we get another section?
Yeah, we need to get a little more.
Yeah. We're a little chintzy on our ad there. Okay, so now we got a good ad. Okay, so now we're going to try to get this crown piece through and just over my hands and everything pulled to the back. This would be a good opportunity for me to change where my ladder position is. I've got a good hold of the mane, and I'm going to step down, being the short person I am. And I know yep, thank you, Bethany. Bethany kind of grabbed a hold of it a little, but now Bethany's really feeling for the part, when you say, trying to get to the part and then pulling it from that piece. So you can get, if she kind of fingers down to the middle of that braid above where I am, then she won't miss the long hairs, and you get like individual long hairs that are a little bit in the wrong spot. Okay, so I can see that I have a lump here. So that lump, I'm going to have to pull that middle piece a little bit firm. So sometimes you'll see that you'll get a little bit of a hump in there. As long as you're watching, because it was hard for me to see, I have to tell you, I've got contrasting light down here. But as long as you're watching, you can, and you catch it in the beginning, you can fix that. And you just have to pull the section. You have to figure out what section is creating the hump. And adding to the back again. Actually, it's So the back piece goes over. Bethany adds. I cross. Pull everything firm. The back piece goes over. I cross. And now I can see I'm getting a little bit of a lump there, so I'm going to pull a couple of sections tighter. That helped. The back piece went across. Now I'm really trying to make sure that I keep this, I don't start getting where I'm starting to pull towards me as I get the mane further and further away from me. So I think that the most important things that we want to remember is to keep, if you noticed how Bethany and I keep adding the mane in right above the braid. She's handing me just the right amount of hair so that we don't end up having to pull from further down the mane neck. It's again right from above the braid where it has to feed in, and you're going to have to adjust the hair, how much hair you put in to make that happen. If you put too much hair in, what will happen is, show what would, if you were further down, it would happen that you'd be pulling the hair from further down the neck, and if you're doing that, then it's going to start pulling the braid off. So it's really important to try to keep entering the hair from the top into the pieces that you're working with. And when you mess that up, trying to figure that out, you just know that you've got to add less or more depending on if you're getting behind or in front.
I think one more and then we'll be at the end.
Yep, so we just try to make them pretty even. Looks like we have room for one more cross in, and then we are now just running down. It's okay, yeah. What's interesting is, Bethany, you want to show, just lift up how much hair we have left? So we actually have a lot of hair there left, and that's the part that keeps the horse from not getting pulled when the neck goes down and stretched. When people say, oh, they can't get their necks down, it's because they braided too far back. Really makes a difference not to over braid too far back. Figure out where your saddle's going to be, the front of your saddle pad, all that's going to cover that up a bit, and it's more comfortable for the horse, and that is more important than going back a little further, is what's comfortable for him too. So now I'll do the same thing. I'll roll that string around the end of this. I'll take the two pieces in one hand. So I've got my two sections of string. I'll pull the hair separate. I'll take my finger and I will wrap the string around my finger and pull the string through, both sections through. Pull that tight, and that wax really holds there. Go up through the top. Wrap around the front. I'll kind of feel how big I have it on that side. Wrap around from the front. Stick the hair back down through the bottom. I'll leave the tip of the braid kind of within the braid. I'm looking for the wax string so I can see I've got it here, so I might even pull all that through for a second. Then I'm going to roll that tip right up underneath there where I can hide it when I tie it off. I come over the top of the braid. I actually take one loop, two loops. If you do two loops, it holds the tightness. When you pull on this, come down below the halfway mark of the braid and pull that tight. If you come down here, that's what holds it close to the neck. If you tie up here, it's going to stick out. So if you do that and then you tie it off here, that was a good tie, and I could put rubber bands on it, but that was I had a nice amount of string left on this one, and so I didn't feel like I need the rubber bands, so that really holds it. So from the top, you can see we've got this V up here, and he's ready to go. Cut the string and we're done. So there's an example of how to braid that mane up and make him look very elegant.